limitless. That's Life Unlimited.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Good morning, I'm Bree Driscoll, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. 11 days from Election Day and more stars stepping out on the campaign trail. Vice President Kamala Harris will be in Texas with Beyonce. Yesterday, Bruce Springsteen attended a Harris rally in Georgia. Former President Donald Trump also spending time with a big name today. He will appear on the Joe Rogan podcast. The Trump campaign says he'll then speak to reporters in Austin, Texas about border security and migrant crime in the city. The Los Angeles County District Attorney recommending resentencing in the case of Eric and Lyle Menendez in light of new evidence. A judge will ultimately decide on the brothers' case, and a hearing on the matter is expected soon. More fast food chains are beginning to take precautions after an E. coli outbreak stemming from McDonald's left one person dead. Burger King has disposed of potentially contaminated onions, and the parent company of Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC says it's removing fresh onions from some menus at locations just to be safe. And the 2024 World Series begins tonight between the Los Angeles Dodgers and New York Yankees. And the star-studded matchup will have a record 5 former MVPs in the lineups, including Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. First pitch is scheduled for 8:08 Eastern, 5:08 on the West Coast. Those are your headlines. Now here's a look at your weather on the ones.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm meteorologist from Mel Carpenter. We had a cold front tracking across the Central Plains that's bringing much cooler weather in some of those communities. We'll be at 67 from Kansas City to Denver, upper 50s in Minneapolis, and how about the low 60s up in New York? It's been a beautiful stretch of weather, and that is set to continue once again. Our cooler weather, though, is going to begin to work its way eastward as the cold front progresses through the Ohio Valley and along the East Coast. Not going to be bringing much in the way of wet weather, but it is going to bring a chance for a few showers in some areas that could use some rainfall. We'll talk about that and much more coming up in 10 minutes.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. I'm Bree Driscoll. Today is Friday, October 25th. Our top story, a big day on the campaign trail for the two presidential candidates. Vice President Kamala Harris will be in Texas campaigning, where she will be joined by Beyonce. And that's not the only music icon she's spending time with this week. Yesterday, she was joined by Bruce Springsteen, who criticized former President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is running to be an American tyrant. He does not understand this country, its history, or what it means to be deeply American. And that's why November 5th, I cast my vote. Kamala Harris is in law.
And Trump spending Friday with Joe Rogan for the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Rogan has more than 14 million followers on Spotify. Later, Trump will speak with reporters in Austin, Texas on border security and migrant crime in the city. He also discussed the issue yesterday.
Immediately upon taking the oath of office, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I will rescue every town across America that has been invaded and conquered.
We have team coverage of the presidential election with just 11 days to go until Decision Day.
The Kamala Harris campaign said around 20,000 people showed up here in Clarkston, Georgia to see her and a star-studded lineup. With less than 2 weeks to go until Election Day, Harris said she is fighting for the future as she makes her closing argument in key swing states like this.
And everybody here knows it's going to be a tight race until the very end. So we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Harris said she understands prices are still too high and that folks are frustrated, but she argued she has a better plan to fix it than former President Donald Trump. Another former president, Barack Obama, made his first joint appearance with Harris on the campaign trail, saying he gets why people want to shake things up, but that Trump is not the answer.
He acts so crazy, and it's become so common that people no longer take it seriously. And the good news is that Kamala Harris is ready for the job.
The night featured a performance by Bruce Springsteen with a message.
Donald Trump is running to be an American tyrant.
And a plea from filmmaker Tyler Perry.
Begging you, imploring you, let's get out and make Kamala Harris the 47th president.
Supporters we spoke with said they're backing Harris because they feel the stakes are so high.
This is a life or death situation right now. Our whole democracy is at stake.
I'm more emotionally involved in this one than I've ever been to anything else.
The 2020 race for president came down to less than 12,000 votes here in Georgia. Experts say Harris is struggling to earn as much support from black voters as President Joe Biden did, so the Harris and Trump campaigns are tracking that closely. Reporting in Clarkston, Georgia, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
Former President Donald Trump in the Sun Belt Thursday, once again bashing Vice President Kamala Harris on issues including immigration.
We're a dumping ground. We're like a garbage can for the world. That's what's happened. That's what's happened to. We're like a garbage can. You know, it's the first time I've ever said that.
Earlier Thursday, Harris blasted Trump for not participating in a CNN town hall in Pennsylvania, calling him, quote, exhausted. He instead took part in a town hall with Christian voters and held a rally in Georgia.
I watched last night. She did a town hall. Honestly, it was pathetic. It was pathetic. There's never been anything like that.
Trump won Arizona in 2016, but lost in 2020. He has never won the state of Nevada. He will campaign in Texas and Michigan Friday. In Washington, Karina Capabianca, Spectrum News.
As Election Day nears, millions of Americans have already cast their ballots, and the candidates are spending millions on last-minute campaigning. Spectrum's national reporter Angie Gonzalez has more on that and some new allegations being waged against former President Donald Trump.
According to the Associated Press, around 30 million Americans have already cast their ballots using advanced voting measures. Now, that's more than a sixth of the total number of people who cast ballots during the 2020 race. Experts believe one reason for this year's record high turnout in early voting is that former President Donald Trump is now urging Republicans to vote early after discouraging them to do so in the last two elections. The former president has also now reached $1 billion in fundraising since announcing his run for president in November of 2022. His Democratic opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, reached the same milestone in September, just 2 months after she took over as the party's nominee. According to financial disclosures released Thursday, both Trump and Harris have started spending large sums on advertising and reaching out to voters. An analysis by the New York Times found that combined with their main allied super PACs, the Harris and Trump operations spent an extraordinary $500 million in the first 16 days of this month. The former president is facing new allegations from a female accuser who tells CNN that she was groped by Trump during a visit to Trump Tower in 1993. The Trump campaign is denying the claims made by former Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Stacey Williams.
The second he was in front of me, he pulled me into him, and his hands were just on me and didn't come off.
Williams goes on to say that she went to Trump Tower with Jeffrey Epstein, who she was dating at the time. In its denial of Williams' account, the Trump campaign noted the timing of her decision to come forward. Williams says that the 2024 election is not a factor. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum News.
Today marks 1 year since Maine's deadliest mass shooting, with 18 dead and many more injured. Survivors and loved ones continue to find ways to move past the physical and emotional trauma after an Army reservist opened fire at a bowling alley and a bar. The gunman later ended his own life. About 100 survivors and relatives of the victims are now taking steps to sue the Army. An investigation showed that months before the shooting, the Army and police failed to seize the weapons of the gunman, despite knowing his mental health was unraveling, with his own family reaching out to his military base about his erratic behavior. The Army said in a statement Tuesday that it does not comment on litigation. Coming up here on Spectrum News, we'll have the latest developments in the Menendez brothers case as the LA County District Attorney makes a surprising request.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
What if you never had to worry about what you could do? Because you could do anything. Anywhere could be the center of everywhere. And boundaries only existed to be pushed. So the only limit you faced was how big you could dream. What would you do then? Some pretty cool stuff, I bet. Yeah, that'd be some life. That'd be life unlimited.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with you on this Friday morning. The latest drought monitor released on Thursday morning did not bring good news across most areas in the United States. The central portions of the country are seeing moderate to severe drought, even some pockets of extreme drought from Kansas into portions of Oklahoma and over towards West Virginia, southern Ohio under exceptional drought conditions. Those are areas that could really use the rainfall the most. We had a passing cold front work its way across the central plains. Did not amount to much in the way of wet weather, but it did bring some heavy rainfall at times, which is going to help out with those drought conditions. The front itself is going to continue to work its way across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, and it's going to lose a lot of this energy, unfortunately. Not going to be bringing much in the way of wet weather as it progresses to the east. It did bring down some concerns as far as severe weather goes. Had some small hail reported up to around 1.5 inches in some communities across Iowa and Minnesota late last night. And to the south of that, we had more of a damaging wind threat across the Kansas City region, where we had some gusts well over 60+ miles per hour as those showers and thunderstorms fired up. But again, not expecting much in the way of wet weather with this cold front as it continues to work its way eastward. A few clouds, a few light showers along the lake shore of Lake Erie and Ontario, and then a few more sprinkles pushing across Indiana towards Kentucky, and even West Virginia could see some isolated downpours, which will help out, but it's not going to be taking us out of any drought conditions anytime soon. We really need a significant rainmaker, and that doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. A few more showers likely progressing into the mountains of the Carolinas as we get into Saturday afternoon as the cold front works its way to the east coast, and it is going to cool off our temperatures big time as we get to Sunday into early next week. And take a look at the next 3 days. Lots of dry time in store for us from the central half of the United States to the east coast as well. Good deal of sunshine in store for us for this upcoming weekend. Out west, though, specifically the Pacific Northwest is where things are going to really stay unsettled, expecting several rounds of rainfall where we can see some rainfall totals in that 2 to 3 inch range. Looking ahead long term, first couple of days of November trending drier, especially along the east coast. And with us staying dry, we're also going to be much warmer than normal temperature-wise. We'll talk about that and much more coming up.
We turn now to new developments in the case of the Menendez brothers, with Los Angeles prosecutors making a stunning recommendation just yesterday. Our Carla Redditt has the full story.
I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate.
And with that announcement, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon gave the Menendez brothers something they have not received in more than 30 years, options beyond serving life behind bars. Thursday afternoon, Gascon recommended resentencing in the case of Eric and Lyle Menendez in light of new evidence.
And I do believe that the brothers were subjected to a tremendous amount of dysfunction in the home and molestation.
The two were convicted of murdering their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, at their Beverly Hills home in 1989. The brothers never denied they did it, but say they committed the heinous act out of self-defense after years of sexual abuse from their father.
If they were the Menendez sisters, they would not be in custody.
Earlier this month, prosecutors reviewed the undated letter written by Eric that his attorneys say corroborates the abuse allegations. The Menendez's defense also cite Roy Rosselló, a former member of the band Menudo, who came forward with his own allegations that he was molested by the father, Jose.
Maybe now people can understand the truth.
A Netflix dramatization of the murders also reigniting public interest in the case, as family of the Menendez brothers made impassioned pleas for their release.
Lyle and Eric were failed by the very people who should have protected them, by their parents.
A judge will ultimately decide on the brothers' case, and a hearing on the matter is expected soon. Carla Reddick, Spectrum News.
Lebanon state media says an Israeli airstrike on a compound housing journalists killed 3 media staffers. Footage from the scene shows collapsed buildings and destroyed cars. Among those killed were 2 camera operators and 1 broadcast technician. The Israeli military did not issue a warning prior to the strike. Israel says it's looking into the reports. At least 3 more journalists were killed in the past months, including a videographer from Reuters. Campaign was back in Wisconsin yesterday, this time trying to make inroads with voters in Milwaukee and Kenosha, with the hopes they could count on them to vote early. Spectrum's Anthony DeBruzzi tells us more about how Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff spent the afternoon reaching out to a critical voting bloc in Wisconsin.
Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff had some help when he came here to the Harambe neighborhood in Milwaukee Thursday with the goal of exciting the community about getting out and voting early. Vice President Harris's husband had some help from some familiar faces for a Dunk for Democracy block party.
So many people come up to me and say, "Hey Doug, you look pretty tired." I'm like, "Good, I should be tired because all I'm doing is this." And that's great. I want you to be tired too.
In a state that comes down to the thinnest of margins, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff isn't leaving anything to chance.
And the polls are really close here in Wisconsin. They're close all over the country and in the 7 or so swing states, which means we can win each and every one of these states if we just push, if we just get through.
With both early voting in Wisconsin and now the Milwaukee Bucks season underway this week, head coach Doc Rivers and former Bucks coach Terry Porter teamed up with Emhoff and Maryland Governor Wes Moore to spread a message.
I think this is the most important election of my lifetime. It really is, and we got to get everybody to understand that. We really do. When I keep hearing anything again, it ain't good. All right. When you want to take women's rights away again, you want to go back to something again. That scares me.
An analysis by Wisconsin Watch found nearly 90% of Wisconsin's black population resides in just 6 counties in the southern part of the state, 2 of them being Milwaukee and Kenosha, where the Harris campaign hit Thursday.
We don't come from a political family. I don't come from a political background. So I understand where there are people who are asking and wondering, what is at stake and does my vote matter? Because these, frankly, are conversations I'm still having with my own family members. So I get it.
Thursday's block party came just a day after Republicans hosted their own rally to mobilize black voters in Milwaukee. The visit also came in the wake of a recent New York Times Siena College poll of likely black voters that showed support for Harris among black men dropped by 15 points. Compared to 2020, when 85% of black men who were likely to vote said they planned to support President Joe Biden.
And once you go and do the research, don't fall for the misinformation, the gaslighting, these commercials, don't look at that. Go do your homework, and you will conclude, like this young man, that Donald Trump is not your friend.
These latest efforts to mobilize voters didn't end in Milwaukee. Afterwards, Emhoff went down the road to Kenosha with Governor Moore for a March to the Polls event. In Milwaukee, Anthony DeBruzzi, Spectrum News.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, an in-depth look at the marquee matchup between the Yankees and the Dodgers ahead of tonight's opening game of the World Series.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Never have to worry about thinking too big? Because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Good Friday morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter, and we made it to the end of the week. And as we head into this upcoming weekend, the final weekend of October, we have quiet weather in store for us for any outdoor plans, but also a brief cool down on the way behind a passing cold front that's not going to be bringing us much in the way of wet weather. But the great news across the Atlantic Basin, we have quiet conditions in the tropics again as we get close to the end of this year's hurricane season. Temperatures this afternoon, though, will still remain warm across the southeast. We'll be in the low to middle 80s from Atlanta all the way down into Tampa. And how about Texas? Staying hot once again with highs in the 90s from Dallas all the way down into San Antonio, upper 70s in Oklahoma City. And how about Kansas City falling to the upper 60s behind that passing cold front? It begins to work its way eastward as we transition into the day on Saturday, dropping our temperatures down into the low 60s in Kansas City, upper 50s from the Great Lakes all the way through the Ohio Valley as well. And that should make for a pretty comfortable conditions to be outdoors for this upcoming weekend. Weekend forecast is looking fantastic across St. Louis. Highs will be in the middle and upper 60s, right around or slightly above the average for this time of year. But again, this is a brief cool down. Temperatures are going to rise very quickly as we get into next week. How about the Carolinas? Charlotte's going to be warmer on Saturday before that cold front arrives, dropping our temperatures down to the mid 60s. Might see a few more clouds here and there, but should stay pretty dry and quiet as we close out the final weekend of October. As for temperatures across the lower 48, as we get into early next week, take a look at the warm up. Temperatures are going to be running almost 20 plus degrees above the average from Indianapolis to Kansas City and the Denver region. I mentioned early next week is going to stay slightly cooler across the East Coast behind that cold front, but temperatures are going to get above the average again as we head into next week, the first couple of days of November as well. This is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, and you'll notice most of the eastern half of the United States have the greatest odds for above average temperatures, likely climbing into the upper 70s and the low 80s for many of those communities. So enjoy the cool down while it is here. Out west, we're expecting temperatures to be right around average or slightly above it. And as for the tropics, I mentioned things are staying pretty quiet across the Atlantic Basin. No activity activity is expected for at least the next 7 days. However, down in the Caribbean, we are starting to see some potential model agreement with an area of low pressure developing as we head into early November. This is going to be an area to watch, nothing of note for right now, but something to keep an eye on as we head into the next couple of weeks. We're getting close to the end of hurricane season. We have about a month to go. The season officially comes to a close as we reach November 30th.
Well, if you're just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. We're 11 days away from Election Day. Vice President Kamala Harris will be campaigning in Texas today, where she's expected to be joined by Beyonce. Former President Donald Trump will appear on the Joe Rogan podcast. The Trump campaign saying he'll then speak to reporters in Austin, Texas about border security and migrant crime in the city. And the FBI reports it's closing in on the location where leaked U.S. intelligence documents were printed. The classified documents were leaked last Friday regarding an Israeli invasion of Iran. And the 2024 World Series begins tonight between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. First pitch is scheduled for 8:08 Eastern, 5:08 on the West Coast. And that's a look at what you need to know this morning. Happening today, Game 1 of the World Series. It's a bi-coastal matchup between the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers. Our Mary Lee Melendez has more on the history and beyond the sport.
The Stars will be out for this monumental World Series beginning tonight in Los Angeles for Game 1. This is a familiar pairing, although most probably won't remember or weren't alive for it. Get this, no two teams have faced off in October as often as the Yankees and the Dodgers. A lot of history here going back to the 1940s when both clubs were actually based in New York. They've met 11 times in the postseason. The Yankees have the upper hand, winning 8, but the last time it happened was in 1981, so we haven't seen this matchup in over 40 years now. And of course, two massive fan bases from really all over the world. And as much as seeding can help in the playoffs, it's pretty rare to see two #1 seeds going head-to-head in a World Series. The Yankees and the Dodgers have the best records in baseball, so fans of the sport should be in for a treat. It's only happened 13 times in the divisional era. And speaking of treats, while it won't be official until after the World Series, the MVP in each league will be on the diamond. Aaron Judge for the Yankees and Shohei Ohtani for the Dodgers. Judge led the American League with 58 homers. Ohtani led the National League with 54. It's also the World Series' first matchup between home run leaders since the Yankees' Mickey Mantle and the Dodgers' Duke Snider met in 1956. And there's some good sportsmanship as well. This week, Judge called Ohtani, quote, the best player in the game. Well, games 1 and 2 are today and tomorrow in LA. 3 and 4 are in New York in what could be a best-of-7 series. For Spectrum News, I'm Mary Lee Melendez.
Play ball. And you can always stay connected with us here at Spectrum News by getting your national and local headlines on the go. Just download the free Spectrum News app. It's available in the App Store and on Google Play. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum Enterprise, we give over 80% of the Fortune 500 the technology solutions they need to meet their growing business demands. Whether it's ultra-fast connectivity, seamless transactions, safe and secure data, or reliable always-on technology, these businesses demand better, and we're here to deliver it. Get a network you can rely on with our 100% uptime SLA guarantee.
Sometimes Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back.
To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels,
that's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at WeSaySaveIt.org.